Welcome to another edition of Talking with WIT Kevin and Son. This is the fourth edition or episode of President-elect, or soon-to-be President, Sid McNairy. Originally, I wasn't going to start off. Thought I was only going to do one interview. Now one has turned into three. Not only have we've got a lot of positive response. We even had someone trying to hack into our system to cancel out the interviews that we did to Sid. So we know that we reached someone and we've touched a couple of people in a certain kind of way. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, this is the fourth of a series. Yeah, this is the fourth interview of a series that we have already had three put out. And this time we are going to do either around the horn or where you want to call it, table talk or whatever, but real questions from real people that have written in, responded in comments and had questions that they want to ask. Sid McNairy is a husband. He's a father, best-selling author of The Search for the Perfect Wave. And he is just a wonderful individual that happens to care a lot about humanity, thinks that we need to change, and he wants to be part of that change. And he wants to be the voice of the people. So with that said, this episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is through the power of story. We want to uplift our voices of the everyday person, inspire, share experiences and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple: hope, helping other people every day. And with that said, welcome, Sid McNairy. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. How you doing today?
Man, I wish I was you. I will tell you this: you are very popular in the UK from the comments we're getting. Again, there was a boatload of people that listened to the third episode. One went over, and that was probably a surprise. Second one supported the surprise. The third one, I personally believe people are starting to listen to what you're saying. I think people have had enough of politics, and they want a person in office that's going to be the change for the people, the change for better, the change that's going to unite our country and make this country the country both you and I both love. And we're confused just because someone or many people, because of profit, has tried to divide us. And hopefully you're that voice that will bring everything together again. So what we're doing today for our listeners, we have real people with real questions, with real issues. Some we've talked about before in earlier episodes, but they have been kind enough to attach their names to it. So I'm going to read off the copy of these questions, and I'm going to let Sid answer each of these questions. So Sid, are you ready to go around the horn?
Yeah, let's go around the horn.
All right. So our first question or comment is from Mr. John Smith. Location is not necessary. And this is what he wrote. We need to change our politics to reduce inflation and rising costs. What measures will you take locally to initiate these changes?
Well, John, I'd have to say that I agree, first of all, that what doesn't make sense to me is that we have money is man-made. The earth didn't come with money. So we've created something, and whether it was me buying a gallon of gas when I was in college for 89 cents, you don't have to do the math to figure out how old I am. Yet when I was buying a gallon of gas at 89 cents, and here it is at $4 and whatever cents that it is that I bought yesterday, $4.54. Yet oil is still the same. We actually probably get it out of the ground easier now than we did when I was in college. So there's something off in that for me. And I think it's important that we take the time to look at, okay, what are the things that are increasing for almost no reason? And why are they increasing? Why are we choosing to hurt our people, all Americans, in those things that are happening? Now, I know it has a lot to do with where we go get our oil and all of that too. Yet it still shouldn't have to go to those extents or those extremes. And so I feel like what I want to do is go in and evaluate, all right, where these things are and how can we shift them, and then keep putting money back into the homes of the American people. I mean, which looks like being able to incentivize that people have better products to buy locally, and also demanding that the people start to realize the power they have in consumption. I think that's an important part. So when I look at our platform of creating space for peace, we can talk about that, but this one is education to me. It isn't just, all right, do we just go in and revamp what we're paying? It's educating people on the power that we have in consuming things, so that we are putting ourselves in a place that says, this is how we're supporting you for supporting us, the people. One is, I also look at, when I look at this, one that comes to mind for me that's been big is, I've been taking the time to gather seeds from my apples, seeds from my pumpkin squash, seeds from, and I could go on and on and on with the list of things that I'm creating and getting seeds for myself. We can do that for ourselves and then start to make life different. You know, now all of a sudden, if I'm growing my own lettuce, if I'm growing my own fruits and vegetables, I'm not so dependent on everybody else. And I think that's part of giving the power back to the people, is making sure people are educated on what they can do for themselves to better their own lives.
All right. I hope that answers, John Smith, I hope that answers your question. I do want a quick question on the top, added on to that. Do we have enough oil in America that we do not have to be dependent on foreign oil supplies?
I have to do research on that. So I'll have to look at that. Do we? It seems like we should, right? Like, out of the different places that we produce oil, yet I'm not 100% sure on that. So I have to look into it.
All right, let's go on to the next question. Jay Waldner. This is his question to you, Mr. President, or presidential candidate. Curbing gun violence is a critical matter of public safety, public health, and public confidence. No weapons should be sold without a permit or legal documents. I guess he's asking you, how do you feel on that?
Well, I'll agree that no weapon should be sold to someone that doesn't have the mental capacity. I mean, we have rules on driving a car. If you aren't equipped to drive a car, then you don't just get to go out and drive. And if you get caught driving without a license, you have consequences. Nothing should be different around guns. If anything, it should be more critical, because the person purchasing a gun, the likelihood that that gun can cause damage is probably more so than a lot of other things that we have a harder time getting a hold of. So I definitely think that we have to keep and enhance the ability for people to get guns. Definitely, we have to look at that. And it also, and at the same time, I do feel that if someone has the mental capacity to handle that, the people have to have access to that as well. I mean, there's people that live in places that a police officer is not going to get there quickly. That person has to be able to have a gun if that's what they need, if that's what they feel they need, when they live in the rural areas where no one else can come help. So we have to make sure that people are safe on both sides of that coin. And it doesn't mean that we just get rid of guns. I think that's, if we were able to do that, we'd have to do that across the board in every way possible. And that's not going to happen. You know, that guns are circulated in this country legally and illegally. So the person that is a good person sitting at home, I don't own a gun, I don't need a gun. And at the same time, if I ever felt that I really needed to have a gun, I should have the right to pursue that. And as long as I'm protecting myself and everybody else. So yes, there needs to be a critical way of making sure that everybody that has a gun is equipped to manage the gun.
All right. Do you also support the everyday person owning a machine gun as part of
Or
that?
what? No, we got alien ships we need to go fight. Like, who are you going to fight with that? So no,
All right,
no.
I just want to make sure. So, we have some. This one is cute. Well, not so cute. I just like this comment. Rocky Ramani says, "Love from India. Need to bring change in the immigration policy. So many visas are rejected for people from other parts of the world." I guess he's asking you your position on immigration policy.
My position on immigration policy, and I recently watched an interview of a former president, and it was a talk about the wall, and the wall, and it's something I didn't realize about the effects of a wall. Having a wall, and this person, I hate to even give credit for where this came from, yet it did. It came from President Trump. And here's what he said. Two things that you will never change, that either work or they don't. A wall is always serving its purpose. It creates a barrier. The Great Wall of China to the wall that we have between us and Mexico, which means you build the wall, which he didn't build the start of it. Bill Clinton did the most building of that wall. So if you build the wall where people can only come in at a certain point, then you can run the checks and make sure that people are coming in appropriately, which means the smuggling of children cuts down immediately. That's a big effect of that. And that I honor that should be looked at. Should it be illegal for people to come to our country? No, illegally. Like we can't just let everybody in just because they want to come in, when that's something we can protect our citizens with. Like that hasn't changed since the Renaissance period. Like there's certain people that are coming in with potentially ill will. And if that is the case, then we have to be able to vet that, which on the southern border of this country looks like, to me, does look like the expansion and the creation of the wall that makes it safer. Because now all of a sudden, if there's a wall, you're not just cutting across the river that actually people are dying in. When you know you have to come against the wall, you're making sure that things are different. We cut that wall can potentially create a blessing for us. And if we work with another country, in this case Mexico, then we can both do a better job making sure that the proper citizens are going across. The same, it's no different than you got to go through customs to come into this country on a plane. When you go through on a plane, you go over, you basically leap the wall. And now when you land, you've got to meet people immediately to get vetted to come in. And that's the first start to me. I think it is important. The better we are with our checks and balances of bringing people in, to me, that will prevent people coming in harm's way for the person coming and for the people that are here. So I do believe that we have to have a good way to make sure that people are getting vetted on their way in. Yet there are people, this country is built on immigrants. So there are people that are coming and will add to our economic wealth, that'll add to our education wealth, that'll add to diversity in this country that allows us to do better. Yet there's no way we can just let everybody in just because they want to come. We have to vet that.
And I'm glad that you addressed that, because I think Rocky's comment was more on the lines of not necessarily the wall, and I'm glad you addressed that. And those people that are facing the wall are probably the most resourceful people, because when you have a person that digs a tunnel from one state leading back into another state and whatever, it just tells you the wall is only going to be a deterrent just the same way that you and I have overcome things in our life. There's a system that have been in place, and we found a way to get over it, get out of it, get around it, get under it, or whatever the case may be. But I think the immigration policy, and you said it clearly, is allow people that's adding value into this country, and people that are seeking refuge, that are countries that are being terrorized by their own people, bringing families together and so forth. I think that's what Rocky was trying to address, and you did a good job of doing that, and thank you. So the next question is from Michelle, no last name, but 8695. Michelle 8695. And if that's her last name, it must have been tough being a kid in school with that last name. I'm just joking. It says her question or comment is, from the alarming rise of hate crimes against Asian Americans to the continuous menacing of police brutality against Black and Brown Americans, the impact of white supremacy cannot be understated. Needs to bring equality. How does that land on you, sir?
Well, human rights, equal treatment of people, that's God-given. And that, for me, we have to stand in that way. To me, that's my opinion. Someone else may feel differently, yet we are created from the first cell. The first cell got rid of the junk, divided itself in half, and created the next cell. That's all of us at the root. So we are meant to discard what is no longer needed of us and give to the next, for the next 7 generations to come. That's where I come from, which means that in this day and age where we are no longer cavemen, we think differently. We can do better by taking care of one another. And that also means that in taking care of each other, that means that everybody has to step into that. You don't just get a pass because you walk in my house. You don't just get to do whatever you want just because you want to. That's not how it works. This is our house, and the house being our country for all of us. So I think it's important that peace is a thing. That's my number one thing. How do we create peace? Creating peace looks like taking care of everybody. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your gender is. There's basic needs that everyone should have, and everyone should have a right to. That's where I come from. So then that means that we have to take the time to say, okay, when there's situations, number one rule for me when it comes to a team is do what's right by the team. This team right now for me is team humanity. Do what's right by the team. If you are violating and taking something away from some member of the team, then there's consequences to that. If you are elevating and helping members of the team, then there's something that we can lift you up with. And I think we just need to get back to the basics of that. We're all humans. Now we need to act accordingly. If you're not acting like you're a human, you're acting like a savage or somebody that's going out and participating in this whole sex trafficking and all the things that are detrimental to humans, then there should be a consequence. That's just the way it is. And so now you're elevating people. All right, then we're going to work with you. We're going to figure out how to lift you up. You got a business that does something of value for people. I think that's something that I want us to begin to look at is how do we reward value versus just because somebody wants it. I think that's an important thing. Becoming more of a value-based society that if you are doing something valuable for everybody else, then you are elevated. Teachers need to have more than what most teachers are getting in this country. They are elevating. Everybody's had a teacher. Everybody. Not everybody's going to the doctor, but everybody's had a teacher. So I think some of those basic things need to be activated again in our country. And that's partially where we're losing.
All right, let me go back, because if Michelle was here, because I'm in the same position Michelle's in, is that let me dissect the question she's just asked you. There's an alarming rate of hate crimes for Asian Americans, There is a menacing society that attacks melanated people, Black and brown people, however you want to say it, and whatever the case may be. That supports a certain mindset, white supremacy, and don't want to understate that. But when you say team, does that team support white supremacy if they are doing good for the group of people that they think they should be doing good for, and whatever? Because we can dissect what you just said and say white supremacy is a team too, the same way any other team is. And
that's a division of the team. That's not the team. The team is humanity. You can't break off to one part and say I'm still part of the team. No, you're not. You're the offensive line. But as the offensive line, you're not the whole team. We're talking about the whole team. Team humanity is the whole team, not the individual whites that want to point to whatever and treat somebody else differently, nor is it the Black kids jumping people in the street. Those things aren't okay. That's not elevating a teammate. That's actually cutting down a teammate. If anyone is bringing harm to another human being, I don't care what their skin color, there should be consequences. I don't care what uniform they put on, there's consequences. If anyone is elevating someone, we should elevate those people to higher places. It's basic to me. Breaking it down and actually trying to make it about Black, white, yellow, red. These are the colors that the Native Americans put on a flag. Black, white, yellow, red. All the colors of humanity make up one flag, not let's break it up into parts. And so for me, that's where I sit. So when I hear about what's being done to an Asian American, what's been done to an African American, yes, those things have happened. Some of them aren't happening right in this moment. As soon as we know they're happening, something has to be done to stop that. That's just it. And it doesn't need to be broken into. I think we lose when we try to make it about one thing is more important than the other. They're all important. It's team humanity. Now, in order for us to elevate from this old system that has actually divided things over and over again and never moved us to where we can go, we have to get to, there is no way to separate from me and you. No way. It's impossible. We're all here on one earth. We're all here, one humanity. We're all in one universe. We have to come together. At what point are we going to start looking at how to come together and stop fighting over how we can keep it separate?
I'm glad I poked a bear, because I firmly believe the only way that we can be united, we find value in humanity over profit. So another person asked this question. They listed their name as Health Masters. So I take it this is a group. It says, no one is talking about climate change. This is a very serious topic for the future and the future of our generations. Conversation on climate change, Mr. President to be.
Climate change, third most important thing when I look at this platform. And it's not that it's third most important, it's the third thing for me of looking. And so when I look at that, there's a lot of factors to how to do better with our climate change. Can
I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
You listed it as the third, and I want to put something out there while you're thinking. If our planet and our trees die, what happens to humanity?
We got to save everything. You know the guy at CNN, right? The owner, I can't remember his name, and I'm hopeful that he's still alive. He saved the buffalo, and his thing was save everything. Everything had a purpose on Earth. Everything. The buffalo had a purpose. They grazed. They did what they did. The wolves tracked the buffalo that they were saving in California. They tracked the buffalo when they ran to get to the buffalo. They do what wolves do. They dug everywhere they went. They widened the rivers. They increased the habitat around the rivers. And so there is something to save everything, because when we get rid of something, like let's take dragonflies for example, you get rid of too many dragonflies, what populates more? you get more mosquitoes. We have to save everything because everything has been put in the circle of life as we know it for a reason. So I think that when I look at climate, we have to look at, all right, what's the species that's getting pulled away? Right now, we've overfished salmon. I don't know exactly what the salmon do, but I know that they swim downstream and go from freshwater to saltwater. They shift and now they go back upstream to spawn, and we're losing them, which means that there are things that they would eat along that journey that aren't getting eaten that are likely growing. We have to look at those things. We have to say, okay, look at what we did with the eagles. We brought the eagles back, right? We have to look at all those things and say, okay, it's how do we bring everything back into balance, into the balance that's there. So there's a lot to look at that way. And what I will say to you said the masters, the health masters.
The name of the group, the health masters.
What I would say to the health masters, and I've said this to many people, because some people are like, well, I can't afford to help. Yes, you can. Everybody has a part they can do. I can eat less meat, which produces less carbon into our carbon footprint. I think we can always talk about that. We can always look at the carbon footprint that we're leaving behind. How can we drop? If you're going to the same workplace and you live a mile away from someone else, you all can meet and take one car together. Everybody has something they can do. We all have to do our part, because at the end of the day, this isn't a country problem. This is a world problem. That's why I have it as third, because it's the world has to come together. We actually can lead here in our country, the US, and be the example for the world. And this is a world problem when we get into climate control. So for me, that's where I go. We all have things we can do. Every country needs to look at it for what they can do for each and every person. Every person needs to look at it for what they can do for society. And we can all make a difference. And we can stop being so divisive and saying that, oh, my way is the only way. No, it's not. Everybody's way has merit when it has merit. Let's start being appropriate for one another and stop dividing so much. Stop fighting over things and start finding solutions. Keep coming with solutions. That used to be one thing that when I was a coach, that Coach Novak used to say, don't bring me all these dang problems. Bring me a solution and let's execute it. And we took a losing team and turned them into winners. Right now, we have one of the probably greatest shifts we can make in this country is right now. We can go from losing at so many things to everybody participating to how we can have a winning team. And that comes back to it for me. Like, we are all part of the solution, or we are all part of the problem. I just want to be the solution.
All right. Again, I'm going to add one more thing onto it. Is electric vehicles the answer? Putting solar on every single house across the country, would that help?
Okay, so would electrical cars be the answer? We'll know 11 years from now. That's what my dad always said. He's world-renowned scientist. He always said, you don't know the effects of something till 11 years pass. We are here right now. I don't know how many years into this, into the electrical car, not too far in yet. What happens when those cars start to break down? Where do they go? What have we looked that far into it? Like, what does it look like for that battery that we have created to power these electric cars? Do we actually have enough to continue to make sure everybody can get charged to get from home, from one place to the next? There's a lot of things to look at like that. What I will say is, I used to drive a Jeep. I drove the Jeep. Before I got it, it already had 190 something thousand miles on it. I drove it another 100,000. I sold it to a kid because he said his dad could fix it. And CJ7, Jeep CJ7, I'm pretty sure they still have it running. And that was back in 90 something. My floorboards are rusted out. All types of stuff happened when I was driving it. And they revamped it. To me, that's better for the earth than this electric car that we're making all this new stuff. Why? Because The car is still here. No one needs to buy a new car. It can be passed down from generation to generation to generation. We need to make things that actually last. That's the best way to save the earth. Stop making all these new things and put, oh, we're going to get rid of this car. Where are we going to put it? The junk pile? We don't even know how to deal with the junk pile. We don't know how to deal with the stuff in the ocean. We stop making so much. So that's one thing I would say. And then the other thing is just making sure that we just start doing better. Everybody doing their part. That's how we save the earth.
Well, you believe it or not, just like the human body is self-healing. When we closed down during COVID, our water systems, lakes and things that dumped into the ocean, there were plant life that have been dying or thriving. There were things that had disappeared that resurfaced during that. So when America, the world shut down, things started to grow. I think putting solar on homes is one answer. You address the other part is what happens. You know, the average battery has a 10-year life on it. I mean, I've seen people that ran to 10 years and all of a sudden had a big, huge expense to replace that battery. Where do we put it? I think the chemicals and the product that makes up the battery when it's put into the earth, and we need to stop using the earth as a trash can, our streams as a trash can, is more toxic than the product itself. So we got to come up with a better solution. I'm glad you addressed that. So the very last question we're going to ask, and I know that people have a ton of other questions to ask, and whatever you should have wrote in, and I would address those. And you're probably going to write in droves and ask more questions because there are a lot of issues. But I will say this: there's only so much one man can do in 4 years. There are a lot of problems we have in this country, and Sid wants to be the voice of the people, and he wants to address those issues. He doesn't have all the answers. No one has all the answers. But the big thing is that Sid is stepping up to the plate and putting his hat into the ring in order to address that. The reason why he's on this show, because he's having a conversation we should have. Instead of asking questions that will attack him, his character, and whatever, he wants to be the voice of the people, and he's speaking to the people. I personally says, give him a chance to listen. If you want things to change, become a better listener. So the last question, and I'm glad everyone stayed tuned for this. I've asked someone that just recently turned of age that's eligible to vote. The one demographic that is the most neglected or overlooked and probably the most powerful, if we can get them to vote, is 18 to 24-year-olds. What does the future look like with you being president for the 18 and 24-year-old voters? How do you get them to vote for anybody?
Yeah, first I'd say your vote matters. Know that. And the older you get, the more you'll realize that your vote mattered, especially if you missed an election for the trajectory of what came.
Sid, I'm having trouble to find out my vote mattered, because we voted for one person and electoral colleges put him in office anyway.
Well, we'll come back to that. For the 18 to 24-year-olds, for the 18 to 24-year-olds, or those actually for the 12-year-old right now, right? For the 12-year-old and 28, for the 14-year-old right now. What I'll say is that the reason why it matters is you're creating a stage for yourself to perform on. If the stage no longer is there for you, you'll be erased in some way. And so I think it's important for the youth to start to have their voice. I love that our Constitution was taken from the Iroquois Nation. And when that Constitution was taken from them, and we missed some things. The first thing was in the teepee ceremony, which is the Native American church, the children sat closest to the fire. The grandmothers were behind them, the women behind them, and men were on the outside. Somehow we flipped it, and the children have no voice. It's time to give the children the voice back, because the children are the ones that are closest to creation. The ones that are getting closer, they're on their way out. They go. And so it's important for us to to take care of and lift their voices up and let them be heard. Children have, we all come in with this great understanding of peace. You want to know if a baby doesn't have peace? You'll hear them cry. It's simple. When they have peace, they're just happy, smiling, doing what they do. And so I think it's important for the youth to know their voices matter, that when they stand for themselves in an honorable, respectful way, they can even shift their parents just by being them. And so, yeah, me, all you got to do is look at my track record. I've worked with children ever since I've had a chance to work with people. I've worked with and have promised and sat on couches with parents and said, I will be here for your son. And I have been. There's guys that I didn't get to come to my school that I still looked at and made sure, all right, how's that person getting treated at his school? Because if so, I might need to call somebody and see how they can be helped. So that's just who I am. I want the world to be better, which includes and is most important that the children get it, especially those 18 to 24. You can look at my three. What are they doing with their lives? What are they doing with their lives? Like, one is 28. He sells solar, actually. So he has, it's a mission. He goes around and he wants to make sure everybody understands what they're doing with the earth. He doesn't really care that he's selling solar as much as he cares on having conversation with people to let them know what they can do better. My middle son, building buildings, learning what's the different environmental friendly materials that can be used. There's a machine that takes carbon out of the air and pulls it back down and makes material. And he's learning how to use that so that it can put more oxygen in buildings. Then my daughter is doing amazing things as she just came out of school in 3.5 years and then went to work on becoming a physician assistant. And now she's in the workforce and is doing awesome. Like, those things matter. They take care of themselves. That's what every kid should have the opportunity to do. And we have to step into that for them, I think. We have to show that if they give hard work, they will be rewarded for working hard, and that this country will support them. That's just it. These kids are the most important people on earth. They are the future. So we have to take care of them.
No, I appreciate you addressing that. So 18 to 24, you people are listening to you. Sid McNairy is listening to you, to America. All right. This has been a roundtable, table talk, however you want to do it, with presidential candidate Sid McNairy. There are a lot of issues, a lot of concerns that American people have. We can't cover it in a 35, 40 minute. And with Sid, we've ran a lot longer. There's anti-corruption, transparency we need to talk about. Gun control, that climate environment, we touched on that. We probably touched on combating at some point in one of the interviews with drug and crime, counterterrorism, economic prosperity, and the trade policy. Social justice, I think we talked about that in one of the interviews, fair housing, student debt, women's right, healthcare. The list goes on and on and on. There's only so much we can do. But the one thing we have the right to do is position ourselves to make a change. And Sid McNairy is in that position to be the change that we all want to be. Sid McNairy is also, putting his family, everyone else out there, to sense that he wants to unite not only his family, but your family, no matter what color your skin is, no matter where you come from, no matter what your political affiliations. It's time for us to vote and put the best person in office, no matter what side of the aisle you believe on. We are all open right now and prepared for change. I personally believe that at this position, in this next election, the trust value, and depends on who sits in that seat, will either be something to build upon or something that will destroy everything we think about government. So we have to do something about it. Years ago, we talked about the economics, and when Wall Street crashed and whatever, we all suffered. Then when the housing market happened, now we've got social divide. We cannot let this continue. And the only way that we're going to change is get the power back to the people in your local government, your local officials, and putting a person in the office that sincerely cares about you. The reason why we're doing this and we're on episode 4 is because Sid McNairy cares about you, and he wants to change or be the change that all of us want to be. So it's Sid. Before we sign off, is there anything that you want to say to the American people on your behalf before we sign off?
If you care about the future, come join the Rise movement. It's time for us to impact one another in a positive way. Real impact supports everyone. It's time for us to rise together. I want people to get this, and I think it's something we will have to circle back to as a conversation. I go as an independent so that I can stand for you. If I go as a Republican, if I go as a Democrat, I've already said I'm not standing for some of you. I go as an independent because I'm here for everyone. I want people to really get that. I want people to know how to demand that of the people that you are choosing to vote for. We need somebody to stand for all of us as one country under one flag. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you. And Sid, how do people get in touch with you?
You can go to sidmcnairy.com, or you can look up Sid McNairy on all social media platforms. Go to sidmcnairy.com. You can get in touch and reach out. The team will let me know, and we can have a one-on-one conversation if there's merit to that. And I'm here to help whatever that way that I can. To those that are given much is expected. So I expect a lot of myself.
So with that said, to our listeners and to the people that follow, support RMK Productions and a podcast network, I want to thank you for tuning in and listening. This is the 4th episode with presidential candidate Sid McNairy. I hope you enjoyed it. I know you have questions. Feel free to put in the comment box. If you're a person of higher call to action and want to get involved, please follow and subscribe. If you are a person that just wants to make noise and whatever the case may be, my suggestion would be continue to listen and learn before you speak. For those 18 to 24, you do have the power to make a change. You are the change to be. As Sid said it, you are the power. You are the future. Do not let your vote be silent but not casting your vote. Remember everything that Sid McNairy said to you today. He wants to unite the people. Doesn't make a difference if you have grown up with family values to say you're at one party versus the other. If you pick one party, you're dividing the other. It's time for us to come together. I hope you like what you've heard. If you have, go to rmkproductions.org, or you can email us at info@rmkproductions.org with your comments, questions, whatever. If you'd like to be a guest, we welcome you. We're all about people that are giving back to the community. And if you're someone that we should know, you should be part of Talking with Kevin and Son. Sid, we appreciate you much. I know this is not our last time together, but I will leave you with this and leave our viewers, our listeners to this. My grandfather says, like Sid McNairy, when you get to a position that you can help someone, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one. And with that said, I'll fade to black and we're out. Thank you, Mr. Presidential Candidate Sid McNairy. Thank you. Thank you.